Bringing you the very latest from across the nation and around the world. This is your Primetime News Bulletin. I'm Shane Silva.
And I'm Punshani Ebrasingha. Let's start off with a look at your headlines tonight.
Unidentified group breaks into the Rajarata University students' hostel and assaults students. 2 children killed in a train accident in the Talpe area in Galle. And International Olympic Committee bans the Indian Olympic Committee.
A person was beaten to death by a group of people in the 6th milepost area in Paliagoda. The deceased has been identified as Meril Fernando, an individual who lived down Asokaram Road in Paliagoda.
The murder took place in the Dalugama area on the Colombo-Kandy main road amidst many onlookers in broad daylight. The victim had been accused of stealing iron. According to the police, the group that assaulted the victim had subsequently tied him onto a post. The police had arrived after the incident and taken the victim to hospital, but he had died a short while later. The police have begun investigations to arrest the suspects.
We cannot believe where Sri Lanka is heading at present. Earlier this country used to be a nation which abides by the law. Today there is no law. The judicial system has collapsed. The police is also useless. Murders are also taking place everywhere. People are being tied to trees, assaulted and murdered. At a time like this, when there is lawlessness in the country, the government must take steps to safeguard the people and give them the right to live. If things continue in this manner, the people will take the law into their own hands. If this happens, it will be a bigger problem for the people. The government should act fast to resolve this.
Location: Bumblebee Beach. A suspect drowns following an assault. Location: Dixon Junction, Galle. An individual by the name of Kumar Siniviratna hacked to death on the road. A wave of murders in Kahawata. Location: 6th milepost, Paliagoda. An individual beaten to death by a group of people. Doesn't the murders and assaults taking place in public places indicate the lack of trust in the law?
The European Union has urged Sri Lanka to ensure that the independence of the judiciary is protected.
The European Union has urged Sri Lanka to ensure that the independence of the judiciary is protected. Issuing a statement, the European Union notes that the EU delegation in Colombo is concerned by a number of recent developments in the country surrounding the rule of law and individual freedoms. The statement further notes that the Sri Lankan authorities should ensure that the investigations into the large number of deaths at the Valkada prison are speedy and impartial, and adds that all citizens, including students, journalists and opposition politicians, are able to exercise their fundamental rights without impediment. The EU delegation also states that the Commonwealth Secretary-General, the UN Special Rapporteur on the independence of judges and lawyers, and the Asian Human Rights Commission are among the many international actors who have expressed concerns on Sri Lanka.
5 students sustained injuries after they were assaulted by an unidentified group that broke into their dormitory at the Rajarata University.
The assault had been carried out at about 8:50 last night. The students who were assaulted say that while the group consisted of about 11 persons, they were armed and wearing face masks. This was a planned assault. We can't say as to who is responsible and what their intentions were. We request the university administration to make inquiries and ensure that justice is served. The students who were assaulted were admitted to the Mihintale hospital, following which they were transferred to the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital. They were armed with swords, knives and sticks. We couldn't identify them as their faces were covered. Everyone who was in the yard was beaten. When I was first hit, I fell, and then 4 people surrounded me and beat me until about 3 of their sticks broke. Afterwards, they went inside and assaulted the people there as well. The police said that a complaint has been lodged and investigations have commenced. Meanwhile, 2 students who were returning to their dormitory following a graduation party at the Rajarata University the day before yesterday were also assaulted. The Peradeniya University Students' Union staged a demonstration at the Gala Junction in Peradeniya today, charging that the student activists at the Jaffna University are being oppressed. Everyone must unite and create a suitable environment at the Jaffna University and this university as well. Stop threatening them, stop abducting them, and immediately stop exacting revenge from them. At the same time, they must cease the militarization of the Jaffna University.
Meanwhile, views were expressed regarding this at a media briefing today.
We ask that those students be released immediately. Through the detention of these students, these Tamil youth, the question rises in our mind as to whether the government is planning on taking us back to the 1970s. The Tamil youth took up arms in the 1980s because there was no room for their democratic struggles. Therefore, we wish to ask the government whether they are giving the Tamil youth a message to take up arms again. The white van games may begin today or tomorrow. Now the universities are the target. In the end, the government says there is nothing wrong, that there is no problem at all after releasing them in Jaffna, and then finds fault with the students who only asked to be able to demonstrate.
Two children were killed when they were run over by a train in Talpe Gaul. The railway control room stated that the two boys were run over by the train at about 1 p.m. today when they attempted to ride a bicycle on the railway track. The train was plying from Vaunia to Mathura. The two boys, aged 6 and 10, resided in close proximity to the railway tracks in Talpe Gaul. Our reporter said that the mother of one of the children, who is working abroad, had sent money for a bicycle for her son, and the boy's grandfather had purchased the bicycle for him. The two boys were run over when riding this bicycle on the railway track.
In other local stories, the stance of the United National Party on the Parliamentary Select Committee examining the impeachment motion against the Chief Justice was tabled in Parliament today by parliamentarians John Amarathunga and Lakshman Kiriyalla, who are representing the UNP in the PSC.
Through this document, the UMP highlights factors that should be considered by the committee. The written responses given by the Chief Justice to the charges levelled against her had been summarised in this document compiled by the UMP. Rejection of the judicial powers of the PSC, the ability of the PSC to assume judicial power, the rejection of all charges and the request for documentation pertaining to the charges have been listed as the key factors. The UMP states that while the PSC has the power to examine the impeachment motion, the problem arises in the next phase. The UMP states that it is problematic that the PSC will have to approve the process for proving the charges prior to embarking on the next phase. The document tabled in Parliament today further states that it must be decided as to where the burden of proof lies and that the committee must accept the definition in the report of the PSC appointed in the Neville Samarkand case with regard to misbehaviour. The document tabled by MPs John Amarathunga and Lakshman Kiriyalla also contains an extract of the landmark ruling given by former Speaker, the late Anra Bandar Nayaka. Extract: Honourable parliamentarians must draw their attention towards amending the Parliament standing orders on introducing new articles to the Constitution and presenting impeachment motion against judges. Extract ends. Visharada Deepika Priyadarshini Piris, who was awarded the Gusi International Peace Award recently, met President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees yesterday.
Visharada Deepika Priyadarshini Piris won the Gusi Award for her performance of the song Saroja at the award ceremony which was held in Manila, Philippines on the 28th of last month. President Rajapaksa, who met her yesterday, congratulated her on her accomplishment. Deepika Priyadarshini has so far released 4 albums which have gone on to become hits. Numerous accolades have been heaped upon her for her achievements in the music industry and as a playback singer in films. Her mother was also present at the occasion.
UNP Deputy Leader Sajith Premadasa spoke on the housing issue in the country at a media briefing in Colombo today.
This government has projected a false image and myth about the housing sector. This began with the promises they gave in 2005. This government has committed a huge fraud and abandoned these homeless people through their actions. After promising that the 1.5 million homeless families will be brought under a program, the Mahinda Chintana Idiridakma only speaks about a 600,000 housing project. I can clearly say that someone somewhere has lied to the people of this country about the housing issue.
UNP MP Ravi Kannanayaka raised questions in Parliament today regarding professional pilot training institutions in Sri Lanka and the future of trainees produced by these institutions.
Even though there are 324 pilots at Sri Lankan Airlines, I believe that 165 of them are foreigners. I wish to ask why our youth are not being given the opportunity. It is for this purpose that as of today, the training program necessary for this has been initiated. As per the Mahinda Chintana, we are journeying towards using local pilots as much as possible. That is good. School children can benefit in the future thanks to your question.
UNP parliamentarian Rosie Senanayake raises questions in Parliament today regarding the identity of the country financing the Yarn over irrigation scheme and the applicable terms and conditions.
With regard to government's irrigation projects, the President has said that $1.2 billion will be needed for this purpose. How will this money be raised?
We are discussing the terms and conditions presented by the Exim Bank of China in this regard. The project cannot be postponed. 800 million Sri Lankan rupees have been allocated.
There are 248 families who have been deprived of homes and farmlands as a result of this project.
We will definitely provide them with alternate lands.
Up next is a look at Action TV.
The Plant Genetic Resource Centre in Gannorua, constructed with a grant from the Japanese government, was declared open in 1990 as an affiliated institution of the Department of Agriculture. Following the opening of this centre, the government recalled samples of about 2,000 varieties of traditional seed paddy, which had been sent to the International Paddy Research Institute in the Philippines by the Department of Agriculture in 1971 for the purpose of conservation. These 2,000 seed paddy varieties are among 4,500 traditional seed paddy varieties currently stored at the centre in Gannorua. The ability to recall these genetic resources from a foreign country exists because they were sent to an international research facility. This is because it is possible for a gene bank in any country to exchange genetic resources with foreign gene banks and research facilities in the relevant field. As a result, the Plant Genetic Resource Centre in Gannorua has been able to exchange genetic resources with 6 international research facilities. Although the relevant laws for conserving genetic resources do not exist in this country, Sri Lanka is party to international conventions with regard to conserving genetic resources. While the Rio Convention on Biodiversity is among these, this provides limited room for the exchange of genetic resources between nations. However, recently the World Food and Agriculture Organization made the necessary provisions for nations to arrive at bilateral agreements to exchange genetic resources when both nations derive equal benefit from the exchange and for the purpose of increasing global food production and for research needs. However, this country is avoiding signing such bilateral agreements, even considering the benefits, on the foundation that through such an agreement, genetic resources conserved at the centre in Gannorua could be lost to the country. Nevertheless, the contents of this letter, penned by the Director of the Garden Crops Research and Development Institute of the Department of Agriculture, affirms that plans are afoot to remove seed varieties conserved at the Gannorua Plant Genetic Resource Centre from the country.